the problems that the youth face or the challenges that the youth face without focusing on also the solutions to that. So one of the things I think you guys face, and you can say yay or nay if you agree or disagree. One of the things I think you guys face as young Muslims is identity crisis.
Nay.
Nay? So who said nay? Raise your hand. What's your name? Omar. Omar? That's an identity crisis. Because that's not how it's pronounced. Huh? It's Umar. Okay, cool. So do your friends know you as O? O Dog? Omar? Or do they know you as Umar?
They can't say it.
They can't say it. Why don't you make them say it?
Because they can't say
They can say Christina Aguilera. They can say Umar. What's your name? Amin Muhammad. Right. You go to public school?
Yeah.
All right. What do your friends know you by in public school? Amin. Non-Muslim friends in your classroom, what do they know you by? Amin. Do they know you're Muslim?
Yeah.
How? Because you told them, or you just automatically assume because your name is Amin Muhammad, they know that you're Muslim?
They ask me and I say yes.
Okay.
They ask me, I say yes.
They ask you, are you Muslim? And you say, yes, you're Muslim. That's it. Have you ever talked to them about Islam? Talk to them about your faith?
If they ask me?
Only if they ask you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Try not to approach people as much.
Did you hear what he said? I try not to approach people as much. Okay. So all you guys, all you naysayers, right? For all you guys who said nay, no, we don't have an identity crisis, right? So I'm going to keep going. Who else raised their hand? Don't get shy now. Who else raised their hand and said they don't have an identity crisis? I think you do. I think there is an identity. Let me explain what an identity crisis is, because maybe you're looking at it from a negative perspective. It doesn't mean like there's something like inherently wrong with you. That's not what it means. It means that sometimes as Muslim youth, especially immigrants, that your parents migrated here from somewhere else, but you are essentially a part of the American fabric. You are Americans, all right? You're Somali, but you're American Somali. And that gives you a very unique situation in that you're torn between two cultures, multiple cultures, right? So while your parents are Somali, born, bred, all right, and you come from that culture, you were raised here. A lot of you were born and raised right here. So you speak English, you understand, the colloquial terms and swag, and, how many of you guys here got swag? Nobody?
He said yes.
There's nothing wrong with having swag. Nothing wrong with that. It depends on your definition. There's only one definition of swag. You either got it or you don't.
I admit it.
You admit it? There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. By the end of the night, we're going to teach you some swag. You're going to leave here with some swag. Dripping, right? That's a new word I just learned on my way here. Drippy, right? Okay, so what I mean by identity crisis is sometimes you fall in the middle not knowing which one you should identify. You're not Somali in the sense that some of you don't even speak your own native language. So it's very difficult for you to communicate with your own parents. And then you're not necessarily totally American because although born here, your culture is from a different culture other than American culture. So sometimes it may lead you to feel like I'm not necessarily welcomed as a full-blown American, and I'm not fully Somali because I've never even been. How many of you have never been to Somalia? Almost all of you. Almost all of you. So yes, there is an identity crisis to some degree. Trying to figure out, you're in this balance here, not knowing where you actually fall. Do you identify completely as a Somali and you're looked at strange here as Americans? Or do you go completely American and run the risk of your parents looking at you as someone who has committed cultural apostasy, that you have apostated from your own culture? No, I'm just saying. I'm not asking a question. I'm just saying that this is the dilemma. You guys understand where I'm coming from? This seems like the younger crowd of the room. It seems like a more older, more mature crowd of the room. Do you guys, sisters, you understand where I'm coming from? Okay. Now that you have my interpretation of what, excuse me, hello, over here.
No, he's asking me a question.
No, I'm asking the questions.
No, he's
I mean.
Okay. Now that you guys have my understanding or interpretation of an identity crisis, do you understand what I'm talking about? So is there an identity crisis?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It is. And African American Muslims, we go through the same thing. It's no different. Especially those of us who converted to Islam. We converted to Islam from a culture, African American culture, right? Which people tend to think is just hip hop culture. African American culture is deeper than just hip hop. We're more than just rappers and basketball players. You understand? We're more than just sports players and rappers and singers and entertainers. Our culture goes deeper, runs deeper than that. Nonetheless, as African Americans, some of us convert to Islam. And then when we convert to Islam, because our culture is not necessarily rooted in Islam, we tend to go through a metamorphosis. We go through this identity crisis where we put on a Pakistani uniform and we're trying to figure out, okay, well, then we put on a thobe and then we put on this and we're trying to figure out where do we actually fit in? Because, quietus is kept in some, masajid and some communities, coming in with a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. It's not really accepted, even though outside of the mosque, most people dress like that anyway. But it's kind of seen as, non-Muslim clothing, kafir clothes. I don't even know what that term means. Nonetheless, it's used very ubiquitous amongst us as Muslims, unfortunately. And it's almost like when we convert to Islam, everything that we did prior to Islam is shameful and somehow embarrassing. And so we kind of find ourselves moving so far away from our culture, deeper into somebody else's culture until we don't even know who we are. You guys following me? So we go through the same thing. So that's number one. And we'll perhaps before the end of the night, we'll talk about some of the ways that we can deal with that without actually losing who you are, the essence of who you are. All right. Number two, I think one of the challenges that you guys face as young Muslims is healthy interactions between the opposite sexes. Yay or nay? Yay. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Muslim community has, and culture, your culture has contributed to an unhealthy outlook on how we should interact with the opposite sex. We're told to lower our gaze. Women are told to wear big, loose clothing, big clothing, which for some women is uncomfortable because in your mind, you feel like it makes me look bigger than what I really am. I'm wearing this huge abaya that's like 2 sizes too big for me, right? And it makes me look fat. Right? And when I dress like that, boys don't necessarily look at me. Some women, are forced to wear niqab or to cover their faces or encouraged to cover their faces. And the encouragement is more like a demand rather than a suggestion. All right. And then you feel like, okay, well, I'm covering my face, but I'm 25 and I'm still not married. I have no proposals. No one actually even knows what I look like. Facts or not? Facts all day long. And then we're told to kind of lower our gaze. It's like, okay, lower our gaze is part of our deen. Let's not get that. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Lowering your gaze is a part of our religion. But to what degree? I think that we've abused the whole idea of lowering your gaze to the point where you're not even allowed to look up in the face of the opposite sex. Which, in fact, makes us look socially awkward because in most of our realms, in most of the domains that we mingle in, whether it's academic, whether it's employment, whether it's occupational, whatever it is, there has to be some type of interaction with the opposite sex. So as Muslims, we end up here again, the social awkwardness because of some of the extreme approaches that we take to practicing our religion. The Prophet ﷺ gave encouragements to men who were looking for marriage, right? If you're looking for marriage, right? He said to Abdullah bin Abbas, I believe it was, who said that he had proposed to a woman, and he asked him, did you see her? He said, no. He said, then go back and look at her. Perhaps you'll see something from her that will encourage you, inspire you to marry her. You understand what I'm saying? And somebody could say, well, how does a culture propagate marriage without actually looking at the person? And the reason why during that time was because women heavily relied on their fathers, their wali, to go and find a potential mate for them. So if I was going to marry him to my daughter and I said, hey, I want to marry my daughter, he would go on my word. He wouldn't necessarily have to see her. He would go on the fact that his relationship with me is great. I'm a good Muslim, and he would take my word for it. All right? So we'll let him call the adhan, inshallah ta'ala, and then we'll continue before the iqama bi-idhnillah. Fadal, Habib.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
All right, so we're going to call the iqama. We're going to pray, inshallah. And then after the salat, inshallah, we'll continue. Perhaps Muhammad will be here. And then we'll continue with... and if you guys have... This is a discussion. This is not a lecture. Okay, so if you guys feel that you want to share some information that will help us help you, right, then do that. I don't sit here and profess to have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. All right, I'm not some sheikh, some scholar who's sitting from this high place of privilege, and I'm sitting here telling you what you should do to become a better Muslim. That's not what this is about. This is me giving you some ideas of what I think is your challenges and your problems, and to possibly give you some information from the religion that could help you face your challenges, with more vigor, with more enthusiasm, without losing your sense of identity, without losing your Islam. All right. And if you can contribute to that by helping me, by telling me some of the challenges that you guys face, then that would, alhamdulillah, that will help me better. That will help us better to help you, inshallah. Got it? You guys got it? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.